Thank you so much, Naomi, for being here to talk about EFT tapping. I'm so excited about this conversation, and so that people in Mexico and Latin America can know more about this beautiful, beautiful technique. So, thank you so much for being here.
My pleasure. Thank you for having me.
So, my first question is, what's your story with tapping? I know everyone has a story and something that they changed within themselves. So, what's your story with it?
Well, my story was that I was working in television in Los Angeles as a writer producer, and I was doing quite well. And I fell in love with a guy here in Australia, where I live now. And I moved to Australia and I gave up my career, basically, including a very lucrative position being the showrunner on a primetime show and that had just been offered to me. But I had decided to move to Australia because after sort of about a year and a half, 2 years of going back and forth, we decided that we'd have to shift countries. One of us would have to. And that was me because my situation it was easier for me to do that. He had a 13-year-old, 12-year-old child. So it took about 6 months to do the move. In that process, I spent a lot of money. I brought my two dogs over. There's quarantine rules in Australia that you have to go through. I jumped through a lot of hoops. And I was coming back and forth constantly. And we were renovating his house to make it so that I would have an office and I would have room for the dogs and so on. Put a second story on the house. So it was real. It was serious. It was really it was happening. It wasn't some long distance relationship where we'd never met or anything like that. And I moved here, and it feels like minutes after I got here, the relationship ended. And I was like, I felt like I was plunged into depression for the first time in my life. Like I'd never been depressed before. I'd gone through hard things and I'd been sad, but I'd never actually been depressed. So I hadn't understood what depression was. Boy, I understood. I was deeply depressed for about a year and a half, almost 2 years. I went to a doctor sort of within the first couple of weeks, and I just said, I can't sleep, I can't eat. I feel sick all the time. My body is just racked with pain all the time. I'm exhausted. And the doctor, I said, can you give me something? And the doctor said, really what you're going through, the way you're feeling is 100% warranted by your experience, by what's just happened to you. So, you'll probably start feeling better in about 3 months or so. And she said it takes about that long for an antidepressant to work anyway, and you have to find the one that works for you. So that takes some time. And she said by the time you've gone through all of that, you're probably well on the way to healing it. So that's why I didn't go on antidepressants. And so about almost 2 years into this, and everything else that I had tried, and I had had some really good talk therapy in my late 20s. So that therapist, Dr. Aileen Lapierre, she's gone into somatic therapy now, interestingly now, but it was talk therapy and started out with body work. She taught me a lot of tools that came in really handy, and I did a lot of journaling to try to kind of get underneath the emotions that I was having. And ultimately, nothing really worked for longer than a very short period of time. And so I finally admitted to my three best friends that were still in North America. One was in Los Angeles still, one had moved to San Francisco, one had moved back to Toronto. We were on a Zoom together. Actually, it was Skype back then. We were on a Skype, and it was so exciting to all kind of be together on the same Skype, even though I was in Australia and everyone was spread out. So everybody was chatting excitedly about what was going on in their lives and everything. And it got to my turn, and I couldn't lie anymore. I just said, I don't want to be here. And they went, yay, coming back to LA. And I went, no, I mean like in the world. I was not contemplating doing anything drastic. Just, I don't know why, because I woke up every single morning feeling really disappointed that I had woken up. And I was really just looking at, wow, I've got how many more years? I'm like doing the countdown. I've got 40, 45 more years of life. Ugh, you know, it's gonna be terrible. I'm gonna be feeling this way. And one of my friends said, "Oh my God, you have to get on antidepressants right away," which I had been thinking, okay, well, that's the next step. I'll give that a try. The other one said, you have to move back to LA. Obviously, the problem is you're not supposed to be in Australia still. And I hope you're not still hoping you get back together with them. I was like, no, I couldn't afford to move back to North America. But also I had kind of a feeling I was supposed to be here. Like in the sense that I was trying to make of what had happened, I thought, well, maybe the whole purpose of it was to get me to Australia. Maybe this is where my life is supposed to sort of the second next act of my life is supposed to happen. And I didn't have enough money to move back anyway. So I had been just sort of struggling along with this. And my third friend said, you've got to try this tapping thing. And she had introduced me to EFT on a group trip about 4 years earlier, where we'd all gone to this big holiday house together in California. And she said, oh, there's this cool thing I'm doing. And she didn't really know it. But so it looks really stupid anyway, but because she didn't know it and she couldn't explain it very well, and there was no science back then like there is now, it just seemed like she was randomly like hitting herself. And I was just like, you keep doing that. Good for you. Not interested myself personally, no offense. So she just said, I just got this email. I'm on this newsletter list. And this was the guy who created it, Gary Craig. Who's an engineer and kind of life coach sort of thing. And he had taken TFT, thought field therapy, and made major adjustments to it and created this new thing called EFT, emotional freedom techniques. And she said, I just got this newsletter and there's this free manual that I got sent, and I can send it to you, and you've got to promise me that you'll try it. And I promised her that I would try it just because moving back to LA was not an option at that time. And I kind of even didn't want to, even though I wasn't sure why back then. The antidepressants I knew would take another 6 months at least to get the right one, and then titrate it properly and make sure that it fit my brain chemistry and so on. Okay, this stupid tapping thing sounds like the easiest thing. So I thought I can tick the box and at least sort of accomplish something. I can tell my friend I tried that wacky thing. So she sent me the manual, and boy, it was dry reading. It was dry as dust. It was not, there were no great illustrations. It was like all hand drawn and no big marketing. It wasn't all colorful, but I had promised. So I read it, and it took me 3 days to read it. Anybody who's been depressed knows that it's exhausting being depressed. So the most kind of energy that I had for anything was, I would read maybe for about 45 minutes, and then I just, I can't do anymore. And that's enough for today. And the next day I was like, okay, I got to keep going on it. After about 3 days, I'd read it. And then it was like, suddenly I was at the end of it, and I was like, okay, now I have to try it. All right, well, who knows how long it'll take me to memorize the steps. And so I thought, well, that's another way to stall this whole thing, because it took 10 minutes. I just rehearsed it about, X number of times, and it was like, okay, it's pretty straightforward. It's pretty simple. It's pretty easy. It's pretty quick. I guess I got to try it now. So I started tapping based on what I had learned in the manual, and I felt an immediate shift. Immediate. Like the way that I had described the depression was, I felt like I had a rotating ball of barbed wire in my chest. Like my heart was a rotating ball. Like it physically felt like that, like sharp static electricity or something all the time, which had been a revelation. Like I didn't know that depression was physically painful. Learned a new thing. Anyway, I started tapping. I was already spending hours alone in my room crying every day anyway. So all I did was like touch my face while I was crying, I mean, it didn't feel like a lot of advice people would get when they're depressed is like huge lifestyle changes. And it's just like, I don't know if that advice takes into consideration that brushing my teeth is a challenge. So I'm going to take a pass on that. But just doing the EFT was so easy. It was just so easy, so simple, and I felt this shift immediately. It felt like this rotating ball of barbed wire over that course of about 45 minutes, hour that I kept doing it. I kept doing it only for one reason, and that is that physically I was feeling different. It felt like the volume was being turned down on this pain. So then, go about my day, end of the day, there I am in my room again, having all the same racing thoughts and emotions. And I'm going to do that thing again. Again, the pain, which had come back, going down, 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 down. I tapped every single day like that, once in the morning, once in the evening, for about an hour each time. So I was doing about 2 hours a day for about, it was 5 to 7 days. I don't remember how many days because I just remember thinking, wow, that only took a week. And what happened was sort of in the middle of the 10th to the 14th hour of tapping, just to give people a realistic idea of how long it can take to make a major shift, like getting rid of depression. The depression went away. The whole thing. It was as if someone had flipped a switch. It was less than a half a second. It was just 1 second I'm tapping and crying and processing, and the next second it's off, it's gone. It was the weirdest, most disorienting thing because we're used to having negative emotion come up really, really quickly if something negative happens. You can be having a great time, you're laughing with friends, you're having a great time, and suddenly you see like a plane crash in the distance, and you go from laughing at everything, you go like that instantly. But what we're not used to is going from feeling bad to feeling good in like a split second
Mhm.
without something amazing happening. If you're feeling terrible and then you suddenly see that you've won the lottery, yeah. You can go, your state can change pretty quickly. I think you probably go to shock first before you would go to happiness. But it was almost disorienting. And I kept thinking this depression's going to come back for sure. Because everything else I had tried worked for maybe 3 days max, and then it would be back. So it didn't. It never did come back. And 3 weeks later or so, I had a trip to LA planned that I had been dreading because, again, if you've been depressed, you know that happy occasions make it worse. So I had to go to LA and see all my friends and do things. And I just thought, oh, it's going to be terrible. It's going to be so triggering. I'm going to have to carve out time every day to go and be alone and cry because seem to need to cry every day. And that's how I'd been anticipating the trip going. About an, like a few days into the trip, and it was 3 weeks after this massive shift from tapping, I just thought, wow, it's not coming back. I trust this now. And the whole time from when that depression fell off me to that moment where I realized it wasn't coming back, I felt like I was lighter than air. I felt, the analogy I give is if you've been lifting and carrying something really, really heavy and you put it down, it feels like your arms kind of float up. I felt like my whole being was floating up. I felt like I was walking on air. And I was so joyful and happy to be free of that depression, sleeping again, not waking up in the middle of the night, 3:11 every morning for whatever reason. That's what time my phone said, 3:11. And all of that was gone. So that's the origin story of how I got interested in EFT, because I was only interested in EFT from that point on. Everything else I did was just like, oh yeah, I got to pay the bills. I'll keep writing for television and so on. But all I want to do is tap with people, tap on myself, experiment with it, see how far can I go with this? What's going on? What's really happening? That's the beginning of the journey.
I really love that because I think everyone who shares tapping in a way starts in that way, like I I I also have a story with I had anxiety, and a lot of people that I've talked about, they heal something in themselves first, and they are like, what is this thing I have to share with the world? And that's amazing. The one thing that I think it's missing in this part of the world, I think you guys really do have that taken care of. But here, most people share it from an energetic or manifestation perspective. And I'm like, people, this is so much bigger and so much powerful than that. For me, it was anxiety, and then last year I got depression. And it also helped me. I was doing talk therapy as well, but you know, just like you were saying, like the tools that you have from therapy, they're amazing, but sometimes they're not enough. And I cannot be texting my therapist 24/7 or when I'm having an anxiety attack, like, hey, help me. And the fact that I can help myself, it's really amazing. So, why do you think EFT is so effective? And I mean, not why do you think? I know you know the science behind it, but why is it so effective for so many things and for so many emotional and physical sensations?
Well, I think that there are a number of different approaches, a number of different ways that you can answer that question. First of all, the reason at a foundational level that I think it's so effective is I think if humans beings shipped with an operating manual, when, if they're at some point, here's a human being and here's an operating manual, there would be instructions for tapping. And the reason that I say this is because I often give the analogy of, like, think of a car alarm. And if a car alarm is meant to start going off and making an alert noise to let you know that someone's trying to break into your car, and you can go then and either the thief runs away or you realize that it was just a gust of wind or someone was jogging past your car and they tripped and leaned into your car and something like that. So this noise is just filling the whole neighborhood and people are coming and looking out their windows, and you've got a little thing called your key fob thing for your car that you point and you go doot doot like that, and it shuts off instantly. So in human beings, we have this fight or flight system, which is in the primitive part of our brain, the amygdala, and the reptile brain. It's also called. A lot of lower sort of animals. I mean, there is actually evidence now that reptiles have emotions, have a bit of a limbic system. But let's just say for now, it's called the reptile brain because the idea is that it is simply has one job. It is not there to help you figure things out or to do math or to navigate relationships. It's there to get you out of physical danger. It's an on-off switch. The on switch is I'm in danger physically, and the off switch is I'm not in danger physically. That's its job. When that gets activated, and lots of different things can activate it, actual threats or perceived threats, we go into a stress response. That's how humans are designed. That stress response sends a cascade of chemicals through our body that can help us get out of that situation in a number of different ways. Fight, like I'm going to fight back that saber-tooth tiger, or I'm going to run away and try to climb a tree, or I'm going to faint, play dead, like possums do, and the threat will go away. So we've got this car alarm in our body that serves multi-purposes when we feel threatened or we perceive threat, but there's no way to shut it off. How does that make sense? The human body is so beautifully designed. How does it make sense there's no shut-off switch when we get activated? And all of those things you described, depression and anxiety, and a host of other physical, emotional, mental issues that people struggle with, can be the result of a alarm system within us being switched on, and we can't switch it off.
Yeah.
Well, the reason I say that it's really it's in the sort of the original operating manual of the human being, it would say troubleshooting. The troubleshooting section, the end, troubleshooting, here's what you do when your alarm system won't switch off.
Yeah.
Because animals in the wild have this thing where when they get triggered, then they shake it off. It wears off. They shake, shake, shake. Ducks kind of geese, like they'll fight, wah, 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 and then they'll kind of fluff their feathers as they walk away from each other. Birds kind of do that. A lot of animals will just shake vigorously to shake it off. So we have a similar thing, and people who do a thing called TRE, tremoring, kind of try to do this on purpose as a way to kind of activate that animal network to shake that off. I personally didn't get a lot from tremoring, maybe because I do EFT and that takes care of it for me, but that's something to look into. A lot of people think that's great as well. So with EFT, what we're really doing is we are interacting with our bodies at a physical level, sending a message to the amygdala, the fight or flight part of the brain, to basically say, no need for you to be freaking out.
Mhm.
So what we're doing is we have these points on our body that have a difference in, I'll show you actually, I've got a little tool here. This is a tool that acupuncturists use to figure out where to put their needles. When I switch this on and I move this around, it lights up and makes a really loud noise when I hit these places on the skin where the electrical resistance is less. In other words, there's more bioelectrical conductivity on the skin. And, you know, the people that talk about interventions like EFT as like on the level of energy and things like that, they're not wrong. It's just that science hasn't sort of been able to quantify that yet. So I don't dismiss that. I don't say that there's no role for that. There's a lot that we used to think was magic that science now understands. You know, like think about radio waves. They've always existed. There are radio waves out in space, but we just didn't have a transistor. We didn't have a radio, so we couldn't pick them up. So if someone was picking up radio waves in their head because they bit into a piece of metal or something, people would think that person was connecting with a metaphysical experience. And it's like, well, no, there's radio waves, but we don't know that yet because it's, 10,000 years earlier. So it may very well turn out that there are ways to quantify this as it is at the level of energy, and there is qi, like Chinese medicine says, flowing through the meridians of your body. But it was so theoretical up until, well, first of all, science has known for a long time that we have these electrical conductivity points on the skin. We've known for over 100 years the body makes electricity. We don't know how yet, but we know the body makes electricity, which is why we have EEGs and EKGs that measure electrical activity in the heart and the brain and so on. And what we didn't have was a physical pathway for what the Chinese medicine called it was like the internet cable of your body that was transmitting this supposed qi energy through the body. We now have it. It's called the premovascular system. And it's a tiny collagen-based microtubule system that travels throughout the body. It was only discovered in the last sort of 30 years because it's so small. It's the width, the diameter of a single skin cell, which is the smallest cell in the human body is the smallest skin cell. That's how small it is. So we needed microscopes to get good enough. And then they put little dyes, they inject dye into these points of higher electrical conductivity through the skin. And you see the dye travel down these pathways that match almost identically with the Chinese meridians. So we have a pathway, we have these points, and we have activation in the brain, and we can see with functional MRIs that when you do the following, you tap, which creates a thing called piezoelectricity. And piezoelectricity is electricity created by pressure. When you tap on these points, it actually sends a pulse, an electrical pulse through the body somehow, and now we think through the premovascular system, to the brain, to the amygdala. It's an electrochemical message that says, it's okay, I'm safe, I'm actually not in threat right now. And so that's as close as we've got to a mechanism of action with EFT. The next part of your question is, how does it affect so many different things? And I think it's because everything negative that you can experience, every emotion that's negative, every belief that's negative, every negative story or memory that just keeps playing in your mind, every negative physical symptom is protective in nature. Is your body, your psyche trying to protect you, if you think about it.
Yes.
And so what happens is when we're sending this signal, I'm okay, I'm okay, I'm okay, through this system, That's why so many symptoms start to go away, because I really think that we are designed, if we have an illness, so a pathogen is introduced into our system, or an injury. So I've fallen down and I've cut myself, scraped my knee or something like that, or I have a blunt force injury or whatever it is. We are designed to heal. Uh,
Mhm.
that's why it seems like time is doing the healing. No, the time isn't doing the healing. The body's doing the healing. The body knows how to stitch the endothelial cells back together and how to, send white blood cells to that area. That's the body doing the healing. It's not time. But time comes into it because we have this belief. The very first time you injured yourself as a child, you probably got told, "Oh, that's going to take a while to heal. Don't get that wet. Don't upset the scab," and so on. So we have very obediently absorbed that message, and it takes a long time. I've seen extraordinary things happen with people tapping on an injury.
Well, a
And
physical injury.
what was that?
A physical injury.
I swear to you, physical injury in the evidence-based EFT HQ site, there are a series of videos that are made. I'm in one of them. There's a bunch of other people where they are giving their testimonials of injuries that they've had, but they knew to tap. And so they tapped right away. And the extraordinary, you could say miraculous,
Wow.
except the human body is miraculous. And when you take stress away, when you take the stress component, your body doesn't have to struggle with that message of I'm in danger, I'm in danger. The healing, the healing is unimpeded. So that's why I think whether it's an emotional thing, a mental thing, like an idea or a belief or an experience or a physical thing, that's how I think EFT gets in there and rewires it. And something else to just point out to people is that we instinctively know we have these points on our body. Every time you go, "Oh my goodness," there's 2 points right there. And the example I always give is, where did I put my keys? Where did I put them? There's a tapping point right there. You're helping your brain calm down so blood and oxygen can return to the prefrontal cortex up here, the part that knows where your keys are. So you're trying to shut off the part going, "Oh my God, I don't have my keys. I can't, get to where I need to go on time." So you've got these 2 parts of your brain competing, and you're doing that. Or, "Oh, these kids are getting on my last nerve," right there. Or, "I'm so stressed right now. Oh my goodness, I'm so stressed." Tapping
Yeah.
points. Tapping points. We instinctively know and we reach for these points that are calming, self-regulating points that calm our nervous system, that send that message of calm. Parents do it with little babies. They're crying. You rub, 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 stroke, stroke, because we know that that touch has a soothing effect on the fight or flight system.
Wow,
So
that's great. I did this one before, before I knew tapping, and I was always like, yeah, I'm stressed, and I rubbed this part. And then when I learned tapping, I was like, duh, it was there all
you're
along, and
like,
I
"That's why I
didn't
did
know.
it."
Yeah, exactly. And I love the fact that you mentioned the body and all these testimonials that because my my problem with the energy part is that sometimes people think that it works with something outside of themselves, and it's like, no, it works with your body. It helps your body, not your aura or your I don't know, whatever, but you're healing your body. And
Yeah.
I think that's really powerful, and that's really something that we have to acknowledge and get back to ourselves, like that power back to me and know that
Self-empowerment.
myself. Yeah, self-empowerment. Yeah, exactly.
I had a client that I was explaining how to tap on an injury. And she said she was very, very just science focused and very that materialistic point of view, and really was struggling to understand how tapping could help something heal. And I said, "Let me show you something." I got a video up on YouTube that someone had posted where he had injured his finger with a saw or something. And it was a pretty gruesome injury. It wasn't like finger gone or anything like that, but it was definitely pretty torn up. And he did a still photograph of his hand every single day for about 40 days. Day one, you see the injury, day two. And then he played it back over the course of 1 minute, Time lapse is what it ended up. And you saw this ugh, and it gradually, and it got redder, and then it got this, and then it got scab, and then no, 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 and the scab went away, and it fell off, and it was very pink, and then it started to skin. And so the whole video took 1 minute, and it was like something like 40 days of healing. And I did a screen share with her on Zoom, and I said, "Is what you just watched miraculous?" And she went, "Whoa, now I get it. The body is miraculous."
Yeah.
And our ideas about time or how hard it is to change something, those things get in the way. And you can change the equation and just tap into the body's natural, biological, miraculous functioning by removing stress every way that you can, every chance you can. And so the fact that it's a self-help technique, that removes another obstacle to just being able to jump in. I've injured myself a number of times because I'm a bit clumsy. I was washing, doing a washing up, and there was a very sharp knife that I cut my finger on. And I immediately I shut off the water, and there's blood all over the tap from that because it was a gusher. And I grabbed a paper towel, it was the closest thing, ran into the living room, sat down, and it was actually this finger on my right hand, and I'm right-handed, so this was a big problem for multiple reasons. So I grabbed the little paper towel, and I propped my elbow up on the edge of the couch, and I just sat there and I just tapped with my left hand. I tapped for about 45 minutes just on that experience and how just cringy it was, that actual the cutting and the way the blood looked and how it felt, it was throbbing, and also about how I knew it was going to hurt, and I couldn't finish the washing up. How was I going to even finish the washing up with this injury, because it was so sensitive? And after about 45 minutes, all of the distress was gone, all my emotion, like, "Oh, Naomi, you're so stupid. You should have been wearing gloves. You don't reach into hot dishwater when you know you have sharp knives in there. You've got to just handle each one with such presence and careful, et cetera, et cetera." Got all of that sort of regulated and pulled away the paper towel, and there was hardly any blood on the paper towel. First of all, I couldn't see a cut.
Wow.
This was 45 minutes. So then you do this thing where you go, okay, well, I must have imagined. Why was I sitting here tapping for 45 minutes on something that didn't happen? Like I must have imagined it. I'm looking at my finger and I'm looking at it under light. I can't even see where the cut was. So I go I'm thinking, have I lost my mind? I go into the kitchen. There's blood all over the tap. So I know it really happened.
Mhm.
So the next day I was at a friend's house. And at that point, I was describing, and her husband's a doctor. He overheard me talking about right here on my finger. And he swooped in without even asking me. And there was a new product he had, which was a type of adhesive Band-Aid that you put on wounds to kind of seal them up. So like you cut it to size. He had cut a little strip, and I was like this. He grabbed my hand and he whacked it on my finger like this. And I just laughed because I'm like, I was just saying I don't have the wound. And he's like, no, he's a doctor. And he's like, you cut yourself deeply and there was blood everywhere. There's a wound there. And I'm like, it's been 24 hours and I've had no blood, no pain, no nothing. Anyway, that night I was like, I got to take this thing off. I go to pull it off, and the pulling it off actually interfered with the healing a little bit. Still didn't bleed, but now you could see a little fine white line, like a little bit of roughness where
Mhm.
so I was a little annoyed with him. I mean, it was fine. It went, and within a day it was back to completely gone. But it was the pulling off, the mechanical pulling off of that tape that actually disturbed that healing. I would not believe that stuff if I didn't experience it myself. And that's just one example. There are so many examples that I would say to anybody, if you're having surgery, tap beforehand on all your emotions about the surgery, your worries, your fears, your all of those things. Tap, 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 tap. The second you wake up from surgery, you can mentally tap. You don't have to physically tap. You can mentally tap. And there are
Mhm.
people in those videos that are talking about that, who had results where the incision healed within 4 or 5 days, went back to the doctor to have the bandages changed, and the doctor was like, what day did I do this surgery? Because they were
Wow.
like, they were at the 3 week healing point 5 days in, because they had taken all the stress off their body. So when people say this is how long something takes to heal, that is based on what's been observed by people who go into things with a lot of stress, a lot of anxiety. They have reactions to fear, maybe the physical experience of the trauma, whether it's surgery or whether it's you've cut yourself or fallen off a bike or been in a car accident or anything like that. So
Wow.
it's you're definitely harnessing and working with the body, and the more you can learn to do this for yourself, the more you can just make your life easier, you know?
Yeah, but I think that's why people don't do it because it's so easy. And sometimes we
Yeah.
think that we have to do something really big to change our pain, our bodies, or whatever. And that's what's really helped me understand about myself. Like, I don't have to go through this like big transformation process in order to heal myself, or I don't have to spend a lot of time or spend a lot of money. And that's kind of what I think that we think we have to do. Like if we don't dedicate like this amount of time, or if I don't take a course, or if I don't do the thing, it's like you can do it yourself, but you have to try it. And if you don't try it, you're never gonna know. That's people sometimes ask me like, does tapping work for this? Like, what can I do? And I'm like, yeah, I can. You can do a video on the internet, or you can come to a one-on-one session.
Yeah.
Sometimes they don't understand, like, I did the video, but it didn't work. So can you
Mm,
talk to us about that? Because I know
yes.
internet tapping is really big and we all love it and it helps a lot. But when is it time to go with someone and do a
Yes.
one-on-one session, and when you can do a video on YouTube?
Yeah, it's that's a great question. And the difference is that the kind of tapping that you see online, the kind of tapping that's done on the internet that you might hear in a like in a podcast, or you maybe buy a tapping audio and you tap along or listen to it that way. That's all what's called group tapping. And that internet tapping, group tapping often makes you feel good temporarily. And sometimes, depending on what you need to work on, the effects can be long lasting or permanent. But more often, when you have challenges physically, emotionally, mentally that you're dealing with that go deeper, you need to work with someone one on one, or you need to work with yourself one on one. When I did my tapping to get rid of my depression, it wasn't group tapping. It was
Mm.
tapping that I was doing on myself using the manual, because that 2 years of being depressed and all the journaling, I had and the great talk therapy that I'd had all those years earlier, I had a very good idea of what to tap on. And I was being very effective. I was tapping on specific childhood memories, because ultimately, any of your issues are the culmination, the end result of a bunch of experiences that you've had that have taught you about yourself or the world, that usually taught you negative things like I can't do this, I'm helpless, I'm vulnerable, I'm unsafe, I'm not loved. Even the belief, like you just said, it takes a long time to heal or it's really hard to heal. That's a big belief a lot of people have. Healing is really hard. It's actually not true. It's just a belief. And when you don't have that belief anymore, healing can just be really easy because you're not putting that extra pressure on your body. So I got a lot of really important, deep, permanent work from doing EFT. The kind I teach is clinical EFT, and that was the original kind that Gary Craig taught, which is where a person is working on their specific memories, their specific experiences that are underlying and ultimately contributing to this presenting, whether it's anxiety or chronic pain or everything in between. that process of working one-on-one, I mean, working personally, can either be done yourself, like I did with my depression, or you do it with a practitioner. The reason you would do it with a practitioner is, first of all, you don't know how to do the tapping. You haven't had the background to even be able to know where to start. So it's just easier to go to a practitioner. The practitioner is teaching you how to do it at the same time as they are working with you to excavate and make really deep progress on your issues, deep permanent progress. The second one is if you're working on trauma. You should never work on trauma by yourself because a practitioner has a set of techniques that are designed to help you work on trauma in a safe way by creating distance, dissociation, and working with that carefully. Because when you tend to start talking about or focusing on trauma that you've had, you go straight there. It's called the trauma pull. You can't stop yourself and you get re-traumatized. And it's a whole bunch of bad that you don't even want to put yourself through. So it's like going to a gym. You would not lift an extremely heavy weight by yourself. You would have someone spotting you to make sure you don't drop it on yourself. So it's the same thing with working on really big stuff with a practitioner. Very important. The second thing is maybe you're stuck, you're blocked, you've been doing a lot of that self-work yourself and making great results. And even though I'm a trainer, I train people, I train psychologists, I train you know, artists, plumbers, everybody who wants to learn it, I train them how to do it. So I'm pretty good at it. I
Yeah.
still work with a practitioner and find that things come up when I'm with a practitioner that I didn't get to myself. It's kind of like the unconscious, my theory is, needs to see an adult present. The second it sees an adult in front of you, it goes, okay, now it's safe to talk about this thing that happened and that thing and so on. So a practitioner can kind of help you move past that sort of stall point that you've encountered by tapping on yourself, where you're not getting anywhere and you're just like, where do I go from here? I'm not sure what to work on next, and so on. And the other thing, contrasted with group tapping, internet tapping, it can be a great effective way to bring people into tapping. It can be a great way to regulate yourself in the moment. So people that have anxiety, and is a great example. You can find videos that you can watch and just tap along to calm the anxiety, and that can really help you. But and that's powerful and it's helpful, but it's not permanent. So you're basically doing a temporary fix, which is great. We're not knocking temporary fixes. If you're having a panic attack or something, you're all about a temporary fix. Like, give it to me. I want this to go away right now. I just want to feel better. But ultimately, working one-on-one, like working directly personally, either on yourself with self-tapping, using clinical EFT, the way you've been taught to use or learned to use from a manual or something, or working with a practitioner to really help you get under the hood, that's going to take away the anxiety at the roots. That's going to take away the problem of the anxiety. So you don't need to sort of self-regulate and reach for that tapping that gives you the temporary fix.
Yeah, that's how I started when I had anxiety and I found tapping. I was doing some YouTube video and I realized that I hit a spot and I was like, I got from feeling really, really shitty to feeling better, but I'm not moving forward from this point to, so I was like, what am I doing wrong? Like, and that's what got me into it. Like, I have to understand what is happening. So that's why I decided to study and go deeper into tapping. And I think that's what people sometimes don't know. It's like, it's not maybe you did a video and it didn't work for you because you were not saying anything that bugs you, you know? Maybe they were talking
Yeah,
about some beliefs that don't apply to yourself. And I think that's the tricky part, that we can dismiss something because we don't understand why it's not working for.
yeah.
So it doesn't mean like it's better than something else. I do a lot of journaling and I do journaling workshops. And sometimes people ask me like, what's better, journaling or tapping? And I'm like, it's not about what's better or worse than the other thing. I think they all build up, but you have to understand what, what helps you and how it works in yourself, And one thing that I've learned from tapping is that I yesterday we had to put our dog down, and ever since we
Oh,
made
I'm
the
sorry.
choice. Oh, it's okay. But
It's hard.
ever since, yeah, it's really hard, but I did a lot of tapping.
Oh,
We made
good.
the choice last week and I was tapping on myself um about the guilt of the choice,
Mm.
and I realized that my guilt, when my brain told me like this is what you feel guilty about, it was not about that. It was about something else. I was doing my
Yeah,
tapping and
yeah.
checking, like, no, it's still at a 7, a 7, a 7. And when I changed that, I was like, wow, I wasn't expecting that. So what's really beautiful for me is that I've realized that, one, that I can help myself, and two, that sometimes what my brain tells me or what my mind tells me, like this is the way, it may not be the way, and that's okay to try another thing. So I really want to ask
Yeah.
you, because I love hearing someone else's experiences and my teacher's experiences. So what's something that EFT has taught you about yourself in this journey?
Yeah, and I love that question. And I was thinking about how it's taught me so many different things. It's taught me how my brain works. It's taught me the ability to be present with an emotion and just not trying to shove the emotion down, not trying to talk myself out of it, but to try to just be present with the part of me that's having the emotion and just meet it with tapping. Because if you think of tapping as trying to get rid of something, it doesn't work as well as if you think about tapping as a way to meet it and to acknowledge it and express it. So that alone it's an incredible life. It's a game changer, because anytime I experience something, I don't get lost in it the way I used to. There's a me that is sort of grounded and permanent and uh, and anchored, and then there's a reaction that I'm having rather than I'm not identifying with the reaction. Like if I'm feeling sad about something, there's a me that's kind of my eternal sort of identification, and then there's this thing that's like the weather that's happening right now.
Yeah.
That's saying, yeah, and I'm experiencing a lot of sadness right now. And so that allows you to experience it and address it and tap on it. But sometimes I don't even tap on it. It's just letting myself notice I, the eternal, unchangeable, permanent I, is having this experience. It's like if the weather's terrible outside, you don't go, well, the world is terrible.
Yeah.
You go, well, that's bad weather right now, but you can remember days when the weather is beautiful and you know that that's clouds and rain and all that stuff and wind. And when that's gone, you know there's blue sky and up there with and a sun. So it's kind of like that. But I would say one of the most, in terms of specifically my experience, when I was tapping on my depression, the thing that brought me to EFT, um, I uncovered two core beliefs. And these core beliefs, you can think of it as like your uh, childhood programming. Like, what did you learn about yourself or the world because of the experiences that you had? And I uncovered the foundations of my depression. And it was there in all my journaling, and it was there when I started tapping and just going, why is it so painful when I think about this particular thing happening? And I would just tap and feel the physical pain in my body and go, what is this? What is this? And the message that came up, there were two messages. I'm not enough, and I don't matter.
Mhm.
Now, what's so incredible and powerful about that is that I would never in a million years have thought that I had those two beliefs running. I did not act like I had those two beliefs running. I did not think I had those two beliefs running. Like if you asked me, Naomi, what do you think some beliefs are that you're carrying around with you just through everything in life that you've sort of sort of absorbed or adopted in childhood that are still kind of clinging and hanging on and affecting your behavior and your perceptions? I don't even know what I would have answered. I mean, I had never thought of things that way before. And it was a, if you, and if the person, if you'd said to me, well, Naomi, one of yours is I don't matter, I would have gone, no, that's not my belief. I don't believe that at all. Because
Mhm.
my conscious mind did not believe that. Because there was lots of evidence, like I had a great career, I had really solid friendships, my health was really good. My friends, my relationships in general, I felt cared for and loved by people. And same thing with I'm not enough. I'm successful. I've got a career I love, writing for television and I'm not enough. No, I would literally think that person was just didn't know me at all. So I think probably the most surprising thing, but the most valuable thing of all, is that I began to understand that there can be a big difference between what's going on in your unconscious mind and what's going on in your conscious mind, your conscious experience of yourself versus your unconscious. The reason that I was in so much pain as a result of the breakup, which was a rejection, he'd started seeing an ex-girlfriend before I actually moved to Australia, and didn't tell me because he wanted to see if his feelings would change once he got here. Like, he definitely did not behave well. But the reason it was so painful is because I felt so treated badly, like I hadn't mattered. And then a part of me thinking I got treated so badly because I wasn't enough. That's why it was so
Mhm.
painful. Whereas if I didn't have those two programs running in my unconscious, I would have just instantly gone, okay, he's got major issues. This has nothing to do with me. Who would do what he did? Who does that? Right, okay, I've gotten myself into a bit of a pickle here. How am I going to sort myself out? What am I going to do? But I didn't. I was, yes, all of the what do I do? I have to get myself sorted, but all in this cloud of terrible depression and just feeling so bad for a couple of years. So I think that that is the most important thing. And I locate one of my favorite things to do with clients and when I'm teaching students in EFT is to get them to understand the incredible value of working on these childhood core beliefs, because when you uncover them, everything can change, because so much of your perception and your experiences in life is directly because of those core beliefs. And you can have them and not even know. It's no different than having a virus on your computer and you're doing your best and you're working away and you're going, yeah, I'm being really productive. I'm getting everything done. Gosh, this computer's a bit slow, but you know what? It's okay because that's just computers. Computers are slow. Work, work, work. And then somebody comes along and goes, um, oh, here's this way to find out if you have a virus on your computer. Let me go into this operating system, da, 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 this file, that file. Oh yeah, you had a virus in there. Delete. And now your computer is blazing fast and you're like, I didn't even know my computer could be faster. That's my analogy.
Yeah, that's great. I love it. And I love it how you mentioned that you can be present without an emotion.
Uh,
Because sometimes people, you mentioned that you felt like a switch went off when you did a tapping for your depression, but I think sometimes people really don't really get that it's not about not feeling the emotion. Like we have to tap on the negative. And one day, one of my followers sent me a DM, and she was like, she also lost her dog, and she was like, can I use tapping to shut down the sadness and turn it into strength? And I was like, yeah, but that's not how it works. You don't have to shut the sadness. Like you have to feel it. So I think
yeah,
that's really important that you mentioned that. And I think that's what's different for me from traditional therapy. Sometimes when I take my traditional talk therapy, like they're like trying to get me on the good side, and they don't shine a light in all those things that really are the negative for me. So my last question would be that like what's the difference between EFT and traditional therapy and why I know the science shows that EFT is more effective than some types of traditional therapy. So why is this? Why is this happening?
Traditional therapy works with your conscious mind. It works with your prefrontal cortex and often also to some extent with your limbic system, which is your emotions. So if you think of it as your thinking brain, your emotions, and then your reactive brain at the end. So this three-part brain. Traditional therapy sort of appeals to your reason. And it says, let's look at a new way, or let's see if there's a new way we can look at what happened to you. Look, so say you were treated badly by one of your parents growing up. The therapist finds a bit about your family history and says, well, it makes sense that you were treated that way, that your mother was emotionally unavailable because, she was treated with this certain way when she was growing up and she just didn't have the emotional maturity. Can you see how that would be the case? Okay. And intelligent people, we go, yeah, that makes sense. And okay, yeah, I forgive my mother for being emotionally unavailable because I get why. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. But you still get super triggered. You get super sad, super angry. You've got depression, you've got anxiety, whatever all other things you've got. And when people come to me with issues that they've been struggling with a long time, and because I train a lot of psychologists who are trained in these talk modalities, they'll come to me as clients as well. And all of that talk and all of that appealing to the prefrontal cortex has definitely moved the needle in a way, but it hasn't taken care of what's going on in the body. And so what I say to them is, you've done a lot of great work cognitively. Look at what one of the main modalities of talk therapy is: cognitive behavioral therapy. Change your thoughts, change your behavior, and then things will change. Research has shown, no, it doesn't work long term. It can work short term. It can help you think your way through things, but it still requires a lot of suppressing the natural reactions in your body. So what I say to people is, you've done a lot of great groundwork with all of that reframing, that looking at things in another way and with another perspective. Let's bring your body to the party now. Let's get your body on the same wavelength. Let's bring your body up to speed on what's going on. The way you work with the body is not reason. You do not say to the body, for example, have you ever in your whole life, anybody watching this, been able to calm somebody down by saying, calm down?
No, no, never.
Right? So, so it's an intervention that's not language based. It has to be an intervention that is, yes, we use language to a certain extent with EFT, but it's this that is creating that signal that tells the body at the level of back here where the car alarm is going off, it's okay, it's okay, it's okay, I'm safe, 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 right? So what we do is we go and we revisit those experiences that we had that were negative experiences, and we give the body a chance to finally express and have witnessed the negative of that experience. We're not bypassing it. We're not trying to tell you a happy little story. The way that it works is that when you tap on a negative thing that happened, or a negative emotion that you have, or a negative thought, you are expressing it. It's like you're opening a pressure valve. The pressure's been built up. You're opening the pressure valve. You're going, I'm so upset about this. I'm so upset about this. I'm so upset. How dare they have said that to me? How dare they have said that? I'm so upset. I'm so upset. And there comes a point where you go, I've expressed it.
Yeah.
I've had it witnessed. I've expressed it. I don't care anymore. And then you start feeling positive, and those reframes are there. You go, they don't know any better. That was an ignorant thing for them to say, whatever. That has nothing to do with me. That's their problem. That's not mine. But you've arrived at it organically. You've arrived at it from the level of when you blow off that steam, when you release that emotional negative, it's all it is the truth. It's not negative. It's just the truth. When you release the pressure of that unspoken, unexpressed truth. After that, it's like, all right, I don't care anymore. Like what happened to me when I finished that tapping after all of those days tapping on the thing, a lot of my journaling was how to let this guy know how badly he'd hurt me and how wrong it was what he'd done. And I just, and it was just like, it was trying to parse it down to like the perfect, like little letter or something that I could send that he would totally get what he'd done to me. Well, when the tapping had worked, when I kind of, the depression fell away, it was just like, I don't care. He's got issues, whatever, has nothing to do with me. You know what I mean? I wasn't interested anymore. Like the
Yeah.
literally only value that story has for me is it's the worst thing that ever happened to me, which turned out to be the best thing that ever happened because it brought me to EFT, brought me to Australia, was obviously meant to do that. I was meant to live here. I have a whole life here. I've been here for 18 years. Um, yeah, and he just has issues, and that's his. I'm not even interested in his issues. I talk about the story
Mhm.
in. It's interesting to me as part of an origin story with tapping, but I don't have any. I don't have emotion about it anymore. It's a thing. It's a thing that was meant to happen. Wow, was I ever hurt? It doesn't make me forget how much pain I was in,
Yeah.
but I can't access that pain anymore. Like I can't go back and revisit and experience it. And like what you were saying about grief, like if someone who has a loss, we're not meant to tap to get rid of grief. We're meant, if you tap for grief, it's to help you grieve more thoroughly.
Yeah.
And then when you're through the grieving process, what happens is you finally expressed enough for your body that your protest that you had to say goodbye. You finally expressed that enough where you go, and now you start thinking about all the happy things. And now when you think about that person or that pet or that job or that house where you used to live or whatever it is, you feel happy.
Yeah.
So it doesn't mean that you don't know you were upset, but you're no longer in that state. You've resolved it at a physical, deep physical level.
Yeah. And it's different when you open the pressure valve. Like when I had a problem and I would talk about it with my mom and I was like, and this happened and then he did that and that. I really had a relief, but then I went with my friend and did the same and then I went with my husband and did the same. And I was talking and talking and talking and talking and talking about it. And when I do the same while I tap, it's like, okay, I don't need to tell anyone else. This is done. Move on. Goodbye. And
That's a great example.
that's great. That's that's beautiful. Like you stop being so, like I don't know what's the word in English, but like talking about the same stuff over and over again. You say it once, say it to
Obsessive.
yourself. Yeah, you stop being obsessive with one thing, and that's amazing.
It's like when you've got a story or a thought or an idea or a memory or an emotion, it just goes around and around. And we know because of the science of neuroplasticity that you're actually reinforcing neural pathways. So you're actually you're fortifying your brain with in the direction of that thing. But when you focus on the negative, but you're tapping, you're opening a pressure valve rather than just putting more pressure in.
Yeah.
So that's why it's the difference. So when people often ask like, aren't we supposed to focus on the positive? Isn't it bad for us to focus on the negative? Yes, it's bad to focus on the negative when you're not tapping.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That's
like it's bad to put more air in a tire when the valve is closed because it'll blow up.
yeah.
But when the valve's open, it doesn't have the effect of putting more air in. It has the effect of letting all the air out.
Yeah, that's beautiful. That's amazing. Naomi, I don't want to take any more of your time because I know you have very, very busy days. But is there anything else that you want people to know about EFT, about tapping, about this beautiful, beautiful technique?
Oh, I want people to know that I think it's an essential thing for everybody to learn. So whether you learn it with a manual or work with a practitioner and and just educate yourself. It's not hard to learn how to do it in a nuanced, skillful way. Yeah, you're going to need a practitioner to get the most benefit with certain issues, but learning about how to do it helps you to understand. So take a workshop, work with a practitioner, find someone else that you can practice with if they're learning too. And I would just say, put it in your toolkit and use it. And that's my best advice for everybody. It's going to be one of the most flexible and readily available tools that you've got. So I just think everybody should do it.
Yeah, I agree. I agree with that. I second all that. Naomi, thank you so much for being here talking about EFT. I really appreciate it. I hope that everyone learns a lot about EFT from this conversation. So thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Danny, for having me.